All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our weekly series for the Cybersecurity Awareness Month. As you can see on the screen, we are now in week 3. Very excited about the content today. We have with us some of the smartest people in the company. We have Tonya, one of our strategic advisors, Josh, the director of Cofense Labs, and Molly, the director of product management here at Cofense. A ton of really good insight from customers, trends, tips, all kinds of great information. And we're gonna go through the session today, the format sort of a fireside chat. And I think you guys will really get you'll get a lot out of the team just sort of talking with each other. We're gonna try to set it up that way, a little more casual than just presenting slides. And great content. We're super excited about it. Again, we're in week 3 of this, so don't forget to check back next week for the final week in Cybersecurity Awareness Month. But we'll get this week kicked off now. I'll do a little bit of a setup and then turn it over to the team to talk through their the stories. We believe it. So you can see this image on the screen now. We think there is a way to solve the phishing problem, right? And being attacked by phish, which is it's an ongoing problem in the industry, right? Where just about every breach or every security issue that you hear about, it almost always starts with a phish. And so we're right, we're in the middle of that. We see more than what anyone else does, and we think there's a way to solve it. And what you see on the screen is this idea that, with an integrated platform that pulls in simulation, it pulls in training, the ability for end users to report suspected phish based on the training they received, and then bring in automation technologies with triage and vision to identify group phish, remove them automatically using auto quarantine from people's inboxes, so you can instantly get rid or stop a phishing attack, and then having the intelligence that we do from our labs team, our research team, integrated across the products to make them continually smarter and smarter and smarter. We think it's the way to go, and this is what you see, just a visual on the screen of how to stop phishing attacks. And we think the platform that we developed does that, and we have a lot of good examples of that in practice. So keep that in mind as we go through this. But let me stop talking, and we'll get to the really good part of the session today, the fireside chat with the team. And I will turn it over to you now, Tonya.
Thanks, Michael. And before we get started with my lovely colleagues here that I've coaxed them into joining me with today. So just a reminder of what Cybersecurity Month is. It's for the full month of October, and it's this National Cybersecurity Alliance, which is a nonprofit, was launched in 2004. And it was really a joint effort between industry and government to be able to educate and make everyone aware of cybersecurity, how this online interconnected world affects all of us, whether it's in our personal lives or in our work environment. So really, we all look forward to, as security awareness practitioners, to October to be our month that we get to talk about cybersecurity all month long and get everyone excited about it in our organization, with your friends and family. I know I'm always giving out tips to my family about simple things they should be doing to protect themselves. So we kicked off prior to October, being able to have Lisa Plagmeyer on with us as the interim executive director from NCSA, to kind of talk about how we got where we're at and the themes that we have for every year this month. And so this year, CISA really wanted to spend a little bit of time on careers, because we do have this workforce gap. Being able to bring people into cybersecurity roles and fill this gap that we have within organizations. So that's why this week is focused on careers. And so I'm really excited to be able to have Josh and Molly with me today to be able to kind of talk through, our journey in the career that we've come to be in the cybersecurity roles. So Josh, I'm going to have you start with kind of just introduce you, what your role is today at Cofense, and then kind of a little bit about your journey on how long you've been in cybersecurity. I know you probably, out of the three of us, been in it longer. So kind of just talk us through your career journey.
No, absolutely. Thank you, Tanya. So my name is Josh Bartolome. I'm a senior director here at Cofense. Currently, I head up the Cofense Labs team, which is the research and development arm of Cofense, as well as I help Molly with the Cofense Intelligence product, which is a product offering obviously Cofense has. I appreciate the question, Tanya, because it doesn't make me feel old at all. I've been in IT and security since around the mid-late 90s. Active nothing but cybersecurity since early 2000, 2001. The smattering of mix of, was before that. I used to joke around, but as I've taken a step back and, kind of look at my history, I literally have had every single IT or cybersecurity role that you could possibly think of over the last 20 some odd years. I mean, some of the highlights of that is I did have the, ability of working with state and local law enforcement and federal law enforcement early in my career with digital forensics, actually helping and teaching how to do digital forensics. And opportunities arose where I was able to actually build my first SOC in the early 2000s. For an organization that never had a SOC before. And in doing that, I was able to build out a full, security operations center, incident response, malware reverse engineering, and threat intelligence functionalities. And over the years, I've been able to do that a couple of times and help bolster a lot of different teams, augment different types of technologies, actually create a couple of new things as you kind of want to do as you go through this type of activity. And, past all of that, I've done a lot of different security architecture, risk assessments, so the soft side and the technical side of security over the years. And, one of the things that all led me to is there's a definite need for more research and development from a practicality stance, which is why I came over to Cofense about 4 years ago now to actually head up their research team initially, because I think that's where a lot of value add can help with cybersecurity as a whole.
That's awesome. Yeah, it definitely has a play in baking that into, as we build our products to help support all of those functions that you just talked about. So Molly, how about you? Tell us about, how long you've been here and then your journey to get to this product management role that you're in.
Absolutely. Thanks, Tanya. In 2 weeks, I'll be celebrating my 4-year anniversary here at Cofense. And I've been working on the intelligence product all 4 years, though, in different roles. But first, I'll start where I started. My background is actually in international security. I was not, my education was fully focused on international affairs and international security studies. I never would have imagined 7-8 years ago if you had told me that this is the kind of field I would be in. I would have had no clue what a path could look like to land me here. Yet it did. As I was working in international security, I was on Capitol Hill working with the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and it became incredibly clear that if I wanted to call myself an expert on international security, I had to understand the cyber component of it. I thought I would just dip my feet in and get a little bit of an understanding and duck back out. But the cybersecurity field really pulled me in. I went to the Department of Homeland Security, where I was an analyst focusing on threats to the U.S. homeland and our critical infrastructure and federal networks. And in that, I brought my international security knowledge to better understand how nation states were using cybersecurity as a tool in their arsenal, both politically and militarily. I was at DHS for a few years, so I guess I officially entered the field January of 2015. And then when my husband got an opportunity to move to London that I was too eager to pass up, I ended up finding a great opportunity with, at the time, FishMe, to come and teach analytic tradecraft to the intelligence analysts here who were creating and producing the intelligence product. I then took over to manage the analyst team, and about 2 years ago, took over as product manager for the product. And so I've gotten to really crawl, walk, run with the intelligence product as it has matured over the last few years, which has been very exciting. And I never would have thought that I'd be in as technical a position or as like really elbows deep and fully immersed in the cybersecurity world as I am today.
Yeah, there's definitely not nothing boring about any aspect of security. We'll talk a little bit about that. But for me, I've been with Cofense a little bit, 3.5 years. And I was previously a customer of Cofense starting in 2011. But how my career journey started was I worked 12 years in finance roles and then ventured into IT for about 10 years. And then I had done IT compliance for about 5 years, which was really a good blend of my IT and finance together, because that's when Sarbanes-Oxley came about, which is really about the controls on the IT side. And so because I had that finance background, it was a great way for me to speak that language that the finance team spoke, to be able to put those controls in place for on the IT side. But then I got to that point where I'm like, okay, what's my next thing that I want to do? And at that time in 2008, cybersecurity was kind of being this buzzword and this thing that was starting to grow. So I took a lateral movement over into our policies and standards group, just to be able to make that way over and figure out the different elements about cybersecurity or InfoSec at the time. But it wasn't too long into that role that we had a major incident. And because I had been interacting with our security architect team, they were like, you're technical, you should be on this side of the house. So that being on that incident got me to be able to move more onto that technical security architect side of the house. But then not too long into that role, I finally got settled into being technical again. And then the director that owned the security awareness role tapped me and said, you've been telling us we're doing security awareness wrong. You should come over here and run this program for us. So that's really when my journey started in 2011 of getting into security awareness and being able to, which was a great blend for me to use my business background along with my IT and cybersecurity all together when it comes to educating people about cybersecurity, right, in the security awareness role. So that's kind of a little bit about my journey. So Molly, when you're looking to fill one of your analyst roles within your team, what is it that you're looking for, either in a skill set or and are certifications important? Like, what is it that that you're really looking for when you're trying to fill that role?
That's a good question, and it really would depend on what kind of an analyst role we're talking about. So on our team, we have threat intelligence analysts. For a cyber threat intelligence analyst, I am prioritizing ability to learn, ability to communicate, ability to write, and critical thinking above everything else. It is one thing to have a bunch of technical knowledge in your head and understand how things are working as you are pulling apart malware, pulling apart a phishing campaign. If you're unable to then communicate adequately that information, it just stays in your head. There are skills, technical skills that can be taught, and then some skills that are more at this stage in a typical person's development or career, probably already there or not as much. And so that's something that I definitely prioritize. However, I also need to have a balanced team. I need those super malware analysts who can really, really dive in and pull the thread and can work with a good communicator to get that information out. So a lot of it is about team balance, and it depends on what I'm looking for there. Certifications may be important. They may be helpful. I'm wary of being over-reliant on certifications when I'm evaluating someone, because from what I believe a lot of those classes really teach to the test. And what I'm looking for is not, do you have certifications? I'm looking for, are you the type of person that sought those certifications because you were seeking that knowledge that that class represented and gave you? Or are you trying to load up on certifications to boost your resume? This is a growing field and it's a growing space. threat actors are constantly innovating. And so I need analysts who are able to innovate and think critically alongside. So I need an analyst that's not always looking for a teacher, but someone that is inquisitive and wants to dig in and pull the thread and challenge themselves and constantly raise the ceiling on what their current capability is. So there's a lot of self-motivation and self-study involved, and that burning curiosity. That's something that I'm scanning for when I am interviewing a candidate, to be frank.
And so what are those things that, because obviously you can't just come out of college, right, and go and be a threat analyst, right, because there's some maturity and some skills that you need to gain along the way. So what are some of those maybe entry-level roles that they may have had in their, to help them develop some of those skills that you're looking for? Like what might be a role that somebody would look for?
Yeah, I think if you're new and looking to grow into a threat intelligence career path, someone that's worked in a SOC, someone that understands networking because of how malware works and how phishing campaigns work, having some sort of familiarity there. I think most frequently someone that has a SOC background or malware analyst background. There are a lot of universities that are giving a lot. There's so many cybersecurity focused and computer science focused programs in universities where people coming out have a strong foundation and understanding of how malware works, how phishing campaigns work. Someone with that initial visibility and if they've had hands-on experience to an extent, that is definitely best. But someone that has a good foundation and strong communication capability that they're eager to build upon is absolutely the most ideal. And I would also welcome Josh's insights, as he's run several different types of teams that have included different types of analysts as well. So I'll pass the ball to you, Josh, to see if you want to add anything to that.
Yeah, and Josh, as we kind of go through that, I know you built those, you talked about building SOCs, right? So what is it that you look for in those entry roles?
Well, to echo what Molly said, a lot of it is depending on the role and what the existing staff is, because sometimes you need somebody that's a little bit more, technical, or sometimes you might need somebody more that has a little bit more experience on the soft side, insofar as communication or narrative writing and things along those lines. So it does definitely depend on the roles and, what you're trying to round out within your team. But I think that's kind of the key, is you have to have a rounded team. For security, any type of security really, but especially security operations, there's so many different facets that nobody can really be an expert of everything. So technical expertise is something that can be, OJT, on-the-job training, because even as Molly said, attackers are always innovating. I mean, everybody always looks at the threats and says, oh, it's just another zero-day, or oh, it's just another phishing attack. But those attacks of today are so different than the ones a year ago, let alone 5 years ago, 10 years ago. And, analysts at any level need to be able to still have that drive to stay on top of what's happening. So, that self-driven mentality is the big thing. There are definitely some of those traits that you can teach when it, what I generally look for isn't somebody that's, especially from an entry or an intermediate level, isn't somebody that's, a bona fide expert in one area. I'm looking more for the spread of the foundationals, I always call them. A lot of just your standard professional education or personal education. And I'm not knocking it, but they tend to hyper-focus on specific facets versus the entirety. So it's kind of like building a house. They're focusing on the wiring instead of how's the actual architecture of the house play together with, each piece play together. So, I kind of look at, for somebody as I'm going through the interview process, what are their foundationals? Do they understand a little bit of networking? What are the threats? Have they dabbled in looking at malware in the past, even just personally on their own computer? Kind of that spread of their inquisitiveness, as Molly mentioned, because from a SOC standpoint, threat intelligence included, a lot of it's hunting. right? You don't know what you're looking for. So I always used to, say my father was an antique dealer, right? And we would go to places, estate sales and how have you. And so a lot of times everything was laid out beautifully and you get to pick and look at every single object. He hated those. He liked the places that you would go into the house and it was almost a scene out of Hoarders. Because you have to dig, but you also have to know what you're digging for and what you're looking for, or at least to get an idea, is it worth to keep digging? That's kind of that level of mentality that I generally have looked for. Does somebody have that drive and that curiosity? Because with that and with that open mindset and the ability to communicate, versus closed off, want to be in a dark room by yourself and not talk to anybody for weeks on end, you can build that skill set. But they need to know that background. What are you looking for, at least conceptually? What are the anomalies that you're trying to stand out for? So with my example would be, we're specifically looking for this type of ceramic or for these types of things. I might not know exactly what they look like or where I would find them, but I know roughly the shape of them and what room they might be in. That's kind of that type of background, inquisitiveness and broad spectrum knowledge that I was talking about, I would look for an analyst.
I would also add, if I may, because again, it really does depend on the type of analyst role you're looking for. I do want to amend my message a little bit. Because I don't think you have to have a super technical background or computer science background, even a cybersecurity background, to have a really great space, like very lucrative space in this field. There's a lot of room for people and a need for people who are understanding the high level of what threat actors are attempting to do, what they're attempting to accomplish, and really taking a good understanding of who does this pose a threat to. And you want people that are out of the weeds, that are able to look at those macro patterns and and to really help develop leads on this. As you are this type of an organization, you need to be especially wary of X, Y, or Z. And that ability to be a translator too, between super technical people and policymakers or C-suite decision makers, I think is also really important. I wouldn't be here today if everybody in this field needed to have a background in computer science or hands-on experience analyzing malware. So I don't want to narrow it too much in response to your question, because it's such a quickly evolving and broadening field that I don't want people to count themselves out of it prematurely. There's space for a lot of different people with different perspectives that are all really important to have as comprehensive security environment, security posture for the information security community.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would agree. And having been in security awareness as I network in that community, and it's grown over the years since I started in it, we have a very diverse background when it comes to security awareness, right? Because you need to be able to, like you said, Molly, be able to talk to the CISO and give them talking points to be able to give to their peers in the leadership team, or even then be able to talk to your SOC or your incident response teams to be able to understand what are the threats that we're seeing that I need to make sure that my end users who are sitting in their day jobs, right, that don't know what cybersecurity is or why that thing happens, that I used to always joke with my SOC analyst that would get so annoyed that that user clicked on that one thing. And I would remind them that you don't know how to trade a stock, write a journal entry, process a legal document, so that's their day job. That's your job, not their job. But getting still help, what are the important things that they need to know as they scale in their day-to-day life. So even for what we see in the awareness community is, somebody that might come from learning and development or GRC type background, but really then being able to still want to learn and understand a little bit of the technical side, enough to be able to speak to it, to be able to be that translator or that kind of go-between, kind of be the spokesperson for the people behind the curtain, right, working in the dark room with all the monitors up on their screens. So as you are yourself trying to always stay on top of, like you said, Molly, staying on top of the threat landscapes, what are some of the resources that you go to for keeping your skills sharp, or just making sure that you're staying on top of where you're at in your career development and journey?
Yeah, I try to read as much as I can that's publicly available in news media, open source reports. I try to get I try to find that balance of breadth and depth. So trying to really dig in on like APT reports and understanding what threat actor groups are trying to accomplish, how they're pushing the boundary and trying to break through the ceiling of what they're able to accomplish. I am also always trying to, because of how I learn very much through communication. So I also love finding working groups and collaborative groups that I can really talk through some of our current issues and have people challenge my view of what's going on. As someone that cares a lot about like intelligence tradecraft, it's really good to have your assumptions challenged. And so anywhere that I can go to have that happen, I really appreciate. And then there are a lot of different educational resources, and they really vary in terms of the cost to the student. But I highly recommend looking into opportunities for education. There are a lot of free conferences and webinars. There are a lot of paid for opportunities as well. Seek them out. There are a growing number of university programs and online programs focusing on cybersecurity. Seek them out. Be here for hours going through individual ones, and I don't want to prioritize one over another, but hit your Google search and you will find something that fits your budget and time availability, especially as universities are growing their free online course curriculums. Take advantage of it. There's a lot of information out there for you to seek.
And honestly, I think with the pandemic and everybody going virtual, people have opened up their conferences and made things free now, right? So it's a great opportunity. And a lot of those are recorded, so you can always go back through, maybe there's a specific item that you want to kind of poke into a little bit more to see if that, is being curious, like Molly said, and seeing if that's something that is of interest to you, to be able to then start digging into more, where can I learn about that particular thing?
Yeah, and look at talks that like nonprofits and think tanks are hosting. Tune into congressional hearings on cybersecurity topics. You're going to, the more that you can really look at this problem set from different angles, the more you're going to understand, where your interests are, where your passions within this space are, and you're going to start thinking about the problem you're tackling from different angles.
Yeah, I would agree. And I know everybody jokes around about how do I find out information so quickly that I'm sharing with the team, but honestly, Twitter is where I find a lot of my information. And I start looking for, as I'm following a thread, I'll follow a thread and see, okay, who's interacting with it, and then look to see, are they a researcher, are they analysts, what's their role, to then start following them and start listening to some of the things that they're talking about. Because honestly, people like to talk about when they find something or where something blows up big. You can really find a lot of information just by following certain individuals and listening to them or what talks they're doing. Josh, how about you?
No, I agree with everything Molly was saying. I mean, and actually, I was going to raise up what you just mentioned. If nothing else, from the last year and a half, 2 years here, the amount of conferences that have become free online, or like you said, they're recording sessions, so they're making them available to everybody, has been phenomenal, and that's been a great boon. I have one of my daughters is in this field, and just the past year and a half alone, she's been able to gain so much more knowledge just by being able to watch those webinars, those live or canned, because in the past, travel costs and conference attendance costs were outside of her, scope of capability. So I think that's huge. And depending on the areas that you're in, right? I mean, that's the thing with cyber. You have a spread. I mean, you can have, we kind of hit on it. You have the technical side, and the soft side. But each of those sections have so many different slices. Technical side, it can just be threat hunting. It could be threat intelligence. It could be digital forensics, which is different than incident response. It could be reverse engineering. It could be pen testing. On the soft side, you have audit, you have compliance, you have security awareness, but then you also have, different layers of data analytics, data science, predictive analytics, and I can keep going on them. So a lot of it, does depend on what you're interested in. But that being said, I mean, there's a lot of different industry groups and consortiums. So, for those that are just starting in the field, those are great places to start. ISACA, ISC Squared, ISSA, SANS, has different conferences and training opportunities. And if you're looking even at the government side of things, I mean, you have the United States Secret Service, ECTFs, InfraGards, HTCIA. Then you have your staples, Black Hat, DEF CON, that are global conferences as well. And all of those, help start getting your foot in the door and help giving broader exposure. And that's not even starting to talk about the actual certifications that you could look into. I'm not a fan of certifications from a credential perspective, like, to Molly's point earlier, if that's what you have, but, you just know what was taught for the test. That's kind of limited, but certifications, being pragmatic, they do help, help you stand out, and they help you get that baseline if you approach it that way. So even your basic Security Plus, things along those lines from security certification stance are good entry-level certifications. So at least as long as you use it as that and try to actually learn the material, not just learn to the test. So that way helps kind of broadening your knowledge. And those are all of this. All these different conferences, groups are great places for networking, which I think is probably one of the key things in this industry. Because it is, cybersecurity analysts, cybersecurity professionals, we can't talk to outsiders. They don't know what we're saying. It's hard, technical or non-technical. I used to do a lot of risk assessments. I can't talk to my wife about that. She doesn't care. So these networking engagements are ways of getting to like-minded individuals, and a lot of us want to help build up the next generation or build up the existing generation, and vice versa. I want to be better at what I do. So I have yet to run into somebody that's completely closed off from wanting to talk when they meet at these conferences. And I know you're kind of the same way. All of us, honestly, at conferences, we kind of, as much as we may or may not be in our personal lives, in these conferences and at these networking events, we try to be social butterflies.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things, too, is as we are starting to get things back online again. A few weeks ago, I went to Blue Team Con, right? Just being able to network with people who sit in this, in that. And you'll find a lot of these like weekend different con type events where they're very informal, they're very casual, and it's more for that networking and just kind of sharing, not stuff that they can speak publicly about, but like you said, Josh, being able to just say, hey, did you guys see this thing? I've been seeing this thing, right? And just, so they can, there's this secret net, right, that people are sharing amongst themselves that they just can't always attribute to or, mention that. Another really good organization that I always...
Tanya, if I can interrupt for one...
Yeah.
Just one second, because I apologize. And I forgot to mention it because you just reminded me. It's a beautiful point you just made. Most area conferences, which are just your local security group, your local hacker group, they have they get a get together at a bar, at a library, at somebody's house. And those, and I specifically just wanted to call out the word so people can look it up. B-sides is the actual term that most of these groups use. And they're phenomenal to just, again, get that foot in the door into those groups, into that type of community. Didn't mean to cut you off. I just
No,
wanted to call that out.
no, that's a great point. And one of the things when I go to these conferences, because we have two in Arizona called Cactus Con, right? And so it's this great thing that, it's actually open. The CFP is open right now. So go if you have something to submit. But these local network groups, like, they're a great way for you to kind of just understand. And what I find about all of these is they're so welcoming. They are welcoming new people in. So don't be afraid to just go up to somebody after they've given their talk and just have a conversation with them and just pick their brain and, dig a little bit deeper. I took my son with me to to DEF CON a few years ago, and I was so impressed that he just wanted to go run up to the stage and talk to the speaker afterwards to be able to poke a little bit further into that thing. So that curious mind is always so great to see. And, as you start to, rise the ranks, look for those individuals who are curious and want to, learn and, kind of offer to be a mentor. I have plenty of people that reach out to me just wanting to get started in security awareness that, they'll ping me on LinkedIn because they saw something I wrote in the SANS awareness community or, some other thing that I did. And so I'm always love to just talk to somebody and kind of give them tidbits of where can you go to get more information, or how do you get started, or, just introduce them to people who can also help them in their career journey. So, well, it was great chatting with you guys today. I so appreciate you coming alongside me and talking about careers. I'm just going to wrap us up with a couple of things as we close this out. So one of the things that I wanted to just kind of highlight a little bit is the NICE framework. Since NICE, which is under NIST, is works with in conjunction with NIST on the security standards that we all talk about today. They kind of help sponsor this week and really wanted to promote careers this week. And so one of the things that you can really try and find ways of how do I get started is looking at the NICE framework. And I have the link on the next page. But really, this is a great resource, even if you're writing a job description, if you're looking to see what are the skills or what qualifications should I look for in a specific type of a role that if I'm building out a program, and then and then some suggestions on what it is you should be looking for in training and development, and then if you're looking to understand what here's my skill set, where can I what perfect, what aligns best with that for me to even just to get started into working in cybersecurity. So another thing that as I was on a workshop for NIST was actually, or NICE was actually putting together a workshop on what is the security awareness role profession look like. And so, they're starting to build out some of these additional roles that, they haven't gone too deep into now. So, some of the things that you can look in is some of the different categories and competencies that you might need to be able to get started, or that you already have, and where can you kind of adapt into a cybersecurity role or InfoSec program, because there's plenty of jobs. And, and as we've all seen in the news this year, the number of attacks are not slowing down. So if you're looking to get started in these roles, then there's plenty to find. So Michael, I'm going to turn it back over to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And thank you, Josh and Molly. It was really good. In fact, I know both of you, and I learned more about your background and your careers and how you got to where you were. And I think I enjoyed it, and I think probably everyone listening enjoyed it as well. So thank you guys for bringing that perspective. For anybody that is you're watching this now, if you want some additional content or for Cybersecurity Awareness Month, you can go to, there's a link on their site. You can see it up there, the COFENS.com awareness resources. It's a toolkit you can download. It's totally free. You can use it as full information you want. But maybe more importantly is at the bottom of this screen, you can see that Josh, Molly, and Tanya's email addresses. We don't always do this when we have something that's so public facing, because they could be deluged with a bunch of questions, but everyone said they were willing to do that and happy to talk to people about their experiences, their journey, et cetera. And so you can see their email addresses, and they're happy to take questions directly from you. And so jot them down, send them a note, even if it's just thanks, hey, that was really great. Or it even goes to, as Josh and Molly were both talking about, just networking in general in the industry. They're both great contacts to have and people to know. Yeah, people to know in the space. So, okay, with that, we are going to wrap it up. Tanya, thank you as always for leading us through the fireside chat. Molly, Josh, thank you guys for your time today. And we will see you all. Don't forget, next week is week 4 of Cybersecurity Awareness Month, and we'll do another webinar next Wednesday as well. All right. Thank you, everyone.